Okay, hi everybody.
Hi.
It's a little crazy that we're here, but we made it. We did a little test run over on my personal page, but we're here. We were checking out the lighting and we were checking out the camera and making sure that all was good.
It's all good, y'all.
It is all good. It is all good. So I just want to thank all of you for being here. We Betty and I we really met each other, and we've developed this really very special relationship over the last couple of years.
Yes.
We've had many conversations about my journey, about sharing stories in general, and Betty has a very unique perspective on lots of things, and I knew that she would really have a different voice and have really bring a different aspect to this conversation, and that's why I wanted to bring her on this page, so that we can, the purpose of these kinds of conversations is to talk about choice and to talk about the conversation about fertility challenges that people are experiencing. So that's why we're here.
Yes.
And if anyone has any questions, please drop them in the box. We're here together, as you see.
We're a unit, y'all.
So
okay.
so if I don't see it, then Betty, you have to check
I'm
and see.
gonna be on it.
Okay, we're both on it. So,
I actually really just wanted to, first of all, hi, my name is Betty Gulko, and I really wanted to actually start off by taking a moment and just having silence for just a quick second to think about the ones that were lost and all the devastation that happened in New Jersey. It's really horrific, and there's so much we could talk about that, but at the end of the day, I just wanted to say that if there's any growth and or positivity taken from this in any way, let's let that be towards the hearts and people.
100%.
So
100%. It's something
on
that
my mind,
we're all grappling with as a community, and
yeah.
these are conversations about trauma, and that was a huge trauma for all of us.
Yes.
So thank you.
Okay. So
okay.
to shift now.
Okay, so now we're gonna shift.
So Amy and I have known each other forever, feels like forever, and really I feel that for me, we all have our stories, we all have our lives, we all have different circumstances or situations and things that we've gone through or are going through.
Correct.
And I guess to start off, is the concept of, do you share, do you not share, how much do you share, are you supposed to share? And ultimately, I think what we're going to talk about today is it's how you feel and what works best for you, whether it's only for you or for your family or whoever else is involved.
Right.
So that's what we hope to accomplish, I guess, mainly in this conversation.
Right.
So.
And I think the interesting piece, I mean, speaking personally for me, is that as everyone knows on this page, my fertility journey is over. My family is now complete, but I spent, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. But during all of those years that I was suffering, both with secondary infertility, early miscarriage, and then many later miscarriages, there were times that I was public, and there were times that I was not. And
interesting.
It's interesting, and I think for me it was actually it was because they were different circumstances.
Okay.
First of all, when we had secondary infertility after my first daughter, when we were trying for our second, I was still young. I had just gotten married. We had our daughter very quickly, and we were trying for a second, and it didn't happen. And at that point, it was, oh God, first of all, that was many years ago, but also when you're just married, you're kind of sort of still in this new stage of your marriage, and you're still working out the relationship between you and your husband.
Yeah.
So how much more so to sort of, you would never even consider letting other people into your own private lives at that point. So we didn't share. I mean, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, of course. And listen, also, I'm sure at that time it wasn't really such an option like now.
Correct.
But even with your neighbors or your friends or your girlfriends that came over for shops.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that, especially back then, or whatever that means back then, it wasn't something that you just randomly start talking about. So that's amazing.
Right.
Now it's kind of become okay. If
Correct.
You feel
there were at that point, I mean, look, just to give everyone context, my oldest daughter is 17. So we're talking about, it's crazy. But we're talking about 16 years ago and 15 years ago, 16 years ago. So at that point, social media was basically just taking off. The different kinds of organizations like A Time and Bonet Alum did exist, but
which are
amazing organizations, and there are other organizations obviously that have also existed that I have not mentioned,
right.
But there weren't community programs that were talking about infertility or loss.
Right.
People, every now and then you would read something in the newspaper or you would read something in a magazine and you would earmark it and you would save it and you're like, oh God, they're talking about this, but it wasn't a communal conversation.
Right.
Rabbis weren't getting up from the bima and talking about it. It just wasn't happening.
Things have shifted, so it's
right.
amazing. It's amazing.
Right. So, and then I think for me, what changed for me was when I had my second trimester loss, which was about 10 years ago or so. I was already in my second trimester, and so everyone knew I was pregnant.
Wow.
And so therefore, when everyone knows that you're pregnant and then everyone is expecting an announcement, either locally or your friends who live distantly, you then have to tell them. And so we didn't have a choice, and we had to tell them.
Right, but that's hard because in the moment you are just so in your space, in your zone.
Correct.
You don't want to. You just want to keep to yourself or cry or whatever you need to do.
Correct. And that's what I did, and I actually had my husband make all of those calls.
Okay.
I said to him, and
well, that's beautiful that you were able to.
No, look, and the truth is actually we were very smart about it because we picked like 2 or 3 people who we knew could get the message out to everyone else so that they wouldn't bother us and that he didn't need to continue to make those calls. He could just make 2 and then we knew the rest of the family or the rest of our friend group would know.
Right.
But today, it's very different.
Yeah, very different.
I mean, I think that what's really amazing about today is, look, I mean, this handle exists. So there's already a communal conversation from that regard on social media when people can talk about infertility or losses or their struggles to have a family in general. And what's great about Instagram and social media in general is that people can be anonymous. And so you can create an anonymous account or you can send in comments to me, which people do all day long.
Wow.
Or they'll send me their stories and they say, either there's sort of 3 options. Don't share this. I just want to tell it to you because something you put up on your page resonated, it resonated for me and I need to share with you what happened.
Wow.
That's one option. The second kind of message I get is, this happened to me and you can share it, but please don't share my name.
Right.
Or the third option sometimes happens, which Abby actually just did, which was amazing. And Abby has been very vocal about her story, and so many others have been very vocal because they want people to know that this exists. They want people to come up to them in the street and to message them when they're suffering. And they want to be that go-to person who will be able to help others, which is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that it's a choice.
Right.
That just because we're having the conversation and we're doing this and all of the other organizations that are working in this space, just because they're doing that work and you have a place to go doesn't mean that you now need to shout from the rooftops that you're suffering. I wanted to hear what you think about it.
Yeah, so the thinking for me is that I guess we kind of title it boundaries. And obviously that means so many different things to so many different people, and it can come from 1,000 different places. I can't talk about everybody and all the different options, but for me, I think that it was always this question of, well, do I share this or do I share that? And how much of this do I share and how much of that do I share? And am I supposed to? Am I forced to? Do I need to? So it really ultimately boils down to you and how you feel, and I guess really what your goal and purpose is. So if you feel like you can be a voice, you can have someone who can relate or hear your story and get, chazak, strength from that, that's incredible, and I think that's amazing, and I really do think there's a place and need for that.
100%.
it's
100%.
so cool, and I see it. I'm like, oh my God, that's great. She's so brave, or she has
100%.
the abilities to express herself in that way. However, there's the other side where you just say, this is really super personal to me and my family, and it's not something that I feel is, appropriate to talk about on a global level. And, it doesn't mean that it's taboo. It doesn't mean that
Correct.
there's not something going on.
It's not shameful.
Right. It doesn't
Correct.
mean that I
Correct.
am feeling, or the person
Correct.
feels like, woe is me, something is wrong. It
Right.
simply means that it's not a place to discuss publicly.
Correct. It's correct.
But if I'm talking to you,
Correct.
if I'm talking to girlfriends or whomever, I do feel like it's a safe zone, then beautiful. And we all need that. And that's why I think it's incredible that you have this space and that you've shared it's amazing. Other places, like we said, it's open and available to the world today that it wasn't before, which, I'm sure it can be obviously a very lonely place, even to people's immediate family. They don't feel comfortable sharing with their mother or their in-laws, and it's like, listen, of course I get questions all day. When are you having? When are you this? When are you that? And that's normal. I get it. I can't take it personal, but ultimately, just because you don't hear and or see it black and white out there, A, B, C, D, you really have no idea, and it could be a completely choice.
Right.
That's the thing I always say to you. I was like,
Always.
how do people know that? Maybe I just am choosing it.
Correct.
There's hundreds of women out
Correct.
there. You have no idea. Or perhaps on Monday when you didn't see anything, I was going through a huge mess.
Right.
And you're worried about whatever. It's just interesting that nothing to even really do with this topic, but in general. And I'm guilty. I understand that we really just judge, I guess, and assume and or just make these beliefs in our mind based upon what we do see.
Right.
Part of that is not your fault, because of course we put out what we love or what we feel happy about.
Correct.
I don't know, I'm going on a rant, but
no, look, I think you brought up a number of very important points. I think the first thing is that one thing I want to touch on is about how in one family, a husband and a wife, that they each can have different thoughts about sharing in public. Which is
a challenge in itself.
Correct. It's a very
amazing
challenge.
Whatever.
No, I remember when you were saying to me, when we were just talking about boundaries and sharing, you were saying that you got some towels or something like that, and you wanted to share with your page, with your handle, about your towels, and different, and you and your husband both have different ideas about does everybody need to see our towels? Is that really necessary? What are the boundaries?
Yeah, it's interesting. Very interesting. It's interesting. I know what you're talking about. It's interesting because even something as seemingly minute, I was like, it's no big deal. And, the person that you are spending a relationship with is saying, no, that's a very big deal. So there's a lot that goes on, obviously.
Right. And I know also personally for myself, when I finally decided to go public with my stories, I was asked to speak publicly, and I live in Riverdale, in the community in which I live, and I was asked to speak publicly about my story. And for a moment, I kind of took a step back and said, yes, okay, I had 4 second trimester losses. Everyone knew I was pregnant because I was already showing.
Right.
We had already announced. So everybody knew my story, but do I want to get up there again to all of these other people, people who are not in my personal network, and share this? And it was a real discussion between my husband and myself as to, what were the benefits, what were the gains, what were the drawbacks? Was I emotionally ready to do so, knowing that once the story was out there in a more public way, that people would start coming up to me and wanting to hear more about it and sharing all of their struggles. So there were a lot of pieces that I actually had to consider before getting up to do that. And to be totally frank with you, I delivered this talk actually on a Shabbos afternoon, and the entire night before I didn't sleep, and I had nothing to eat the entire day. The talk was 3 or 4 o'clock, because I was so nervous about it, because it was just about me bearing my soul, and I wasn't sure how it was going to be received. And also knowing that, he was supportive, but also worried about
Right.
the public consequence.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard. And I guess I want to use the word vulnerable.
Totally.
But to me, it's funny because if you do know me, I'm very open. Like, I'm very
Right.
comfortable,
Yep.
frank. Like, I think it's so important to share and talk about things. But for some reason, I have this like weird thing with social media that it's just on like such a different level for me that I'm just not, I just don't feel like it's appropriate. I don't know really. There's a lot of reasons, but like, I don't know. Either way, we can go on circles about it, but
and
it's just, yeah, you know.
I think that the beauty of it is that this is a choice, and
Right.
and just because someone chooses to share or not to share doesn't mean that the community isn't in a place to receive that.
Right.
So thank God we're in a place where the community is having these conversations. We are having these programs, and if you are ready to share, that the community is ready to receive it. But I also wanted to touch on one of the other things you were
Yeah.
saying about how people come up to you or they ask you, so like, "New, what's going on?"
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you respond to that?
It's a good
And
question.
what would you like for them to say or not to say
Mm-hmm.
instead? Because one of the things that I like to do with this page also is to give people advice as to
Yes.
how to manage these kinds of conversations.
Love
So
it.
I want to.
Yes, that's very
What do you
important.
think?
It's a great question. Yes. So honestly, it depends on my mood. Because if I'm in a regular good mood, I can handle it much better. I think that's normal.
Very normal.
But if I'm not, I can really just either give some sort of attitude back or, make like a snide comment where they get the message. So it depends, sometimes the comments are just so bizarre. Like, it's like, did you really think that?
Right. Do you,
A normal way to like, you don't even know me.
right. Correct.
You have no idea. And a lot of the times, the truth is, a lot of the times, I think it's innocent. I really do. Not all the time. I think it's like a booby type of
Right.
way of finding out information.
Yeah.
But sometimes I really just think it's innocent. It's kind of just like a way of, like, they don't know what to say. People just don't know how. People in general don't have
Correct.
communication skills, so they don't really know what to like chat about. So they'll just say like, oh, Dina needs a sibling, or oh, whatever, and this and that. And I'm just like, thanks. Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy? Or like, what am I gonna say to that? So awkward.
Do you think is it the people who don't know you and just follow you who are asking you those questions, or is it more people in your personal life?
Well, personal is complicated too.
No, correct. Okay, that's the next conversation.
That are like from community.
No, meaning like community-wise, not
Okay.
in your own immediate personal
I
life.
think listen, it's happened, of course.
Right.
But community-wise, actually, is more respectful. I think.
Amazing. Well,
That's good,
that
right?
actually makes me feel
good? Okay.
that actually makes me feel very heartened, because it means that the people who are your people know you and love you and respect you and know that and understand your boundaries.
Right.
So that makes sense. And that's amazing. So it's funny because the way you were saying it before, right, the way you were saying it before, it made me think that it's, because you said it's people who don't know you,
Right.
made me think that it's really people who follow you,
Right.
who just see sort
Yes.
of this picture of your life
Yes.
on Instagram
Yes.
and see you posing in these beautiful clothes and amazing makeup
They're
and
so
shades
cute.
and with your
Okay.
daughter. Okay, I'm just saying. But then, like, because social media gives you this false sense of reality and
Yes.
it makes you think that you're closer to a person than you actually are,
Right.
then I'm guessing that these people think that they have then the allowance to ask you these kinds of questions.
Could be. Which I guess in some way that's could be a positive thing. Like, it's very nice that you feel comfortable.
Right,
But there's a way. So to answer another question, we could draw into that.
right.
There's a way to communicate. There's a way to converse with the person. Like, schmooze it out, and then if it gets there, and if you see that I'm sharing and talking about it again on a private space for whatever reason, then amazing, great, then we'll get there. But to just like come out black and white with certain comments or certain questions or certain things, it's rude. It's rude, and then it can go even deeper. That it's hurtful. That it's awkward.
Right.
That it's whatever. It's just an uncomfortable space that is so insensitive to other human beings, and it's frustrating because again, I don't share and I don't talk about it, I don't post a picture and write long letters about whatever may be going on, it's almost harder to take those things because it's like,
Right.
oh, only if I said all this whole story, or only if I wrote the whole story, then you wouldn't talk to me that way. But that's not how life works,
Right.
you know?
Right.
I don't know. It's interesting.
You know, when I've posted this before on the page, but when I was still working for Nakama Comfort, we coined this phrase that is really helpful for people when you're like, you know, standing around and schmoozing
Right.
at a bar mitzvah, in shul, you know, at a work event. And, you know, when you're standing around and you're meeting people and you're just having these conversations, it's, hey, how are you?
Yes.
What's your name?
How many kids
Where?
do you have?
Hold on, not there yet. Hold on. Where are you from? What kind of work do you do? And then, oh, are you married? And then it's, how many kids do you have? Right?
Yes.
Okay, so she got it just
Yes.
a little bit sooner. Exactly. But what we suggested is that instead of saying, how many kids do you have?
Yeah.
The suggestion is, say, tell me about your family.
Oh, nice. Do you see the rephrase?
Correct.
Is such a more like warming, welcoming,
Correct.
opening conversation as opposed to like, bam, digging in your heart. Or
Correct.
maybe not. I mean, obviously.
Correct.
And some people can have struggles and not care. I don't know. It depends how sensitive you are. But I like that a lot. I was going to say, what's your family like? I don't know.
Right, so it's exactly the same. But and you know what's great about it though? It works. Yeah, tell me.
We're getting into it.
Yeah.
By the way, it's so interesting you say that because I think, I don't know, maybe in our circles, I don't know, but I think what I've seen is it's like a natural, instinctive way of talking and asking. It's like, how many kids you have? That's like the only way.
Correct.
How many kids you have? Like that's it. And yeah, it's all. Sorry, something's coming to mind, but it's fascinating also to see. Listen, y'all don't know me that well, but I'm a psychology person. I'm a people's person. I get it, you know, and you can sense and feel what people are thinking and saying, really, without them doing much. And you know, when you share and you say, I don't know, for example, I have one child or I have two children, and you see their face.
Yes.
I mean, it's just like they don't even realize. Like their face shifts, and you're kind of like, I'm sorry, was that disappointing to you? Like, how long are you married? You know? Oh.
Right, especially in our community when you are expected to have multiple children, and when you ask and then the follow-up question is always, oh, how long have you been married? And oh, you only have one child, and then it's the head tilt.
Right. Then it's like, oh, it's you. Oh. Yeah, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna go now.
Right, because it's not helpful, and it ends up being just painful for the other person.
Yeah, or perhaps it's just like, what? I don't want 20 kids. I'm actually totally cool and happy.
Maybe it's a choice. And the other thing I was going to say is that it could be a choice for many reasons.
Yeah.
It could be a choice financially.
Yeah.
It could be a choice medically.
Yes.
It could be a choice because you have a mental illness. It could be a choice because someone in your family has a mental illness. There are dozens and dozens of reasons why people have only a certain number of children that have absolutely nothing to do with fertility or loss.
Right.
So it's couched in the same kind of framework, but the root cause is not the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's important to sort of recognize on a communal level that there are many reasons why this can occur, and to not always pigeonhole people into a certain category.
Right.
Oh,
I like that.
She can't get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I wanted to say is that line of "tell me about your family" actually really works for so many different situations. It works if you're not married yet and you're still single, because then the person will tell about their nuclear family. It works if if you've been divorced, or if you've been widowed, or you're a widower. It works.
Keep going.
Keep going?
I'm going to say hi to our friends here.
Okay. It works if you have one child. It works if you have more than one child. It works for...
Oh no, sorry.
Oh, switched it around.
Just
Here we go. It's all good.
maybe I shouldn't do this. It's too sensitive.
I'm just gonna check on our timing just to make sure that we're still good.
Oh,
okay, good. We have about another 10-15 minutes.
See if anyone had anything.
That sentiment, that statement really works in any kind of a situation. I was actually at a family wedding recently and met a an older woman who was there with her husband, who I did not know. Was not part of our family. And she started talking to me about all of my kids and about my family. And as she was talking, there was something about what she said that made me think that she had never had any children. But I wasn't sure. And so I was so grateful that I had this line in my arsenal, because I then said to her, at some point during the conversation, so tell me about your family. And then she said, oh, well, I met my husband who's here, we met, 30 years ago, and we moved, and unfortunately my mom's not here anymore, and my father passed away a long time ago, and it's just the two of us. And if I would have said to her instead, how many children do you have? Or how many grandchildren do you have?
Right.
I would have hurt this woman who I just met so deeply.
Wow.
And so I'm very grateful that I have this piece in my arsenal.
It's a good tool. And I think that we can write that down later.
Yes, we definitely will. I think that what I also wanted to talk to you about is something that you have been open about, and your struggles with endometriosis.
Yeah.
So can you tell me?
Yes.
I've heard it, but can you tell
So
everyone
I'm not
else?
a doctor.
Okay, I'm the pediatrician, not the OBGYN, but I'll add my 2 cents. Go ahead.
So I don't know really how to explain the science behind it, but it's a malfunction, I guess, of the body's natural ways of behaving, and basically certain areas are blocked, and if they're blocked, it's called endometriosis. It's extra pieces that aren't supposed to be there, and they're just interfering with certain things taking place acculayly.
Correct. I think endometriosis is, as the pediatrician, and I did not study before this.
Okay.
But as the layman pediatrician, I believe that maybe in slightly more technical terms, that endometriosis are extra cells that deposit in different parts of your abdominal cavities, but usually specifically around your uterus and around your fallopian tubes and ovaries. It can actually be, in certain cases, be bad enough that it can be in other places in your abdomen, but that these are extra cells. It's not cancerous, but these are extra cells that sometimes can cause blockages and oftentimes are excruciatingly painful. And so can you talk about when you discovered?
Yeah, I'll tell you, sure. Okay. So actually, I have always had tremendously painful monthly visits, and I was really just shut off with that. Oh, you're a woman. Oh, it's cramps. Take this. Take Tylenol. Whatever. Great. You live life and you go through the pain. You think it's normal. Right. Fast forwarding, once I was married, and unbeknownst to me, I was carrying. I was pregnant. And I was bleeding because it erupted, and I was bleeding so profusely that I was literally like fainting. I had no idea, no clue in the world.
Oh my God.
Like literally, I assumed, okay, it's the time of the month. I have pains. Is this more pain? I don't know. Whatever. Live your life. Long story short, is I fainted. And mind you, guys, I've never had like a broken bone or this or that. I've never really, thank God, dealt with anything on this level. So I was traumatized just from fainting.
I can't even. I've never fainted, so I.
Okay.
Okay.
So I wake up and I was like, oh my gosh, I was in a panic, and the doctor, lo and behold, told me, you're pregnant, but you're not pregnant. Like it was like 3 things like in your face all at one time, super fast, shocking when I'm already panicking. So I rushed to the Maimonides hospital to have emergency surgery.
Oh my gosh.
Fine. It was all happened so fast, I didn't have time to think. And then through this process, that's when they discovered that I have endometriosis, which they removed in that moment. But it's an ever-growing, like regrowing cell.
Yeah.
So
right, recurring, yeah.
Right. So that's how I found out.
Okay.
And in a way, I was like, yes, because now I have a reason.
Right, you justified all of your pain, and you felt like it wasn't all in your head, and there's a reason why you're suffering more than everybody else.
Yes. And I was like, okay, oh my gosh, the whole time I'm thinking I'm so bizarre, and meanwhile everyone's telling me I'm normal. I'm like, no, I know something is bizarre here.
Right.
So that was that experience, and it was fine. I recovered, whatever, all good. moving past that. So through that experience, obviously I'm super aware of endometriosis now, and the cycles are extremely difficult in terms of just body changing are much more extreme, emotions are much more extreme, fatigue is much more extreme, pain, just all those normal things are extreme. Obviously there are other side effects that come along with having this in that location, and I guess ultimately, like with anything in anyone's life, it's up to Hashem. I know I'm like totally going there, but I know people who said they were having infertility problems for like 15 years, and then they catch you up with now and they have 10 kids. So you're like, whoa, and they're like, Hashem. Right. And that's really, so yes, we all have maybe some sort of struggle, an area of difficulty, but ultimately, like, it's really Hashem's, I guess, that sounds so scary, but choice to make it happen, and when it's gonna happen, or when it's gonna go through fully, and if it's gonna be, God willing, healthy, and just so many different things. That's the space that I've really grown into, and obviously Baruch Hashem, I have Adina, and that was, thank God, completely healthy and normal, and she's amazing. So, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, for me, my growth has come from this space of having faith and believing and knowing, like actually knowing that Hashem, God, is there for us for the right reason and the right time. And I know that's so hard to accept. No, really, especially in the moments of your pain.
Correct.
It's almost impossible, you know.
Correct.
And I don't know, but that's the only place that I can go, and just like being positive and being confident and being strong and just focusing, you know, to take it back a little bit, is focusing on me and what I feel good and safe in and what's okay for my family. Even like you said, if I think, okay, it could be amazing and I could share and I could do whatever, but perhaps other family members disagree, whether their reason is right or wrong doesn't matter ultimately.
Correct.
So it's a hard balance, but you have to balance that. So again, I get excited. I just go in tangents.
Look. First of all, I just want to say that I think that, look, for everyone, everybody has the piece that they hold on to that gives them the strength to continue to get up in the morning.
Right.
And for some people, whether you're in the religious community or not, for some people that is God, and some people do turn to religion, and they pray more, and they do all sorts of different kinds of things to turn themselves more to God and really leave it in His hands. And for other people, that doesn't work at all. Right. It's painful. It makes them feel that God is not loving and is angry at them, and it's not a place that they can go to for solace, and that they need to work through their emotions in a very different way in order to get to the same place. And I just want to say, and I actually have spoken a lot about toxic positivity on this page. It's actually in my highlights. But what Betty's talking about is not toxic positivity. What Betty's talking about is actual, like, real emuna being faith, and bitachon, sort of another version of faith, of really sort of saying that this is really in God's hands, and that gave her strength. But I just want to, with my comments, just acknowledge that it doesn't work for everyone, and that sometimes we as people who suffer through any kind of trauma or any kind of difficulty sometimes refer to God as, you know, oh, it's all going to be fine and I have to be positive, because if I'm not positive, then, you know, what's going to happen next time, and all of the different relations, what does that mean about my relationship with God? It actually ends up being very complicated. And so I just want to give space to, and again, like as we were talking about how sharing and not sharing and boundaries, all of these are choices. This also is a choice. It's a choice for each individual person to feel connected or not connected, and to get through whatever they're going through in their own way. And there is no right way to do this. The right way is the way that works for you.
Just want to add is that, don't get me wrong, you know, I'm a human being, so, you know, it's just, I've found, like you said, that when I just keep it in that zone, it's like, okay, again, I can have calm,
Right.
whatever. So yeah.
Right. Look,
I'm not like, oh my gosh, yes, all day long.
No, I don't think any of
Yeah,
us
okay.
are. I personally vacillated between like doing everything I could to do things that brought me closer to God, and then like the next day like yelling and screaming at him and like slamming my sitter and like so I feel like on a daily basis I was literally like one day this, one day that. So like all of it is normal.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to close with talking about like giving some other tips and my adding other tips that we can give to the community about either being supportive, like comments that you can say that will help people and not harm people, or even to the other people who are trying to support those who are suffering, things that you can say to those people. Like what you've said already, things that, different things that have been off-putting to you.
Mm-hmm.
Have there been certain people in your life who know you and love you who have done things that have made you feel, warm and cozy all over and made you feel special, even though something might be going on, not going on, just even in your life in general, when they know that that you're having a rough day? Like what do people in your life, what do you suggest for others?
Sure. I kind of going to pull it back to what I said a moment ago, but really just focusing, I think, on what there is and what is good and what is happy. So even, for example, just, like I'm so blessed I have Adina, and just saying, oh my God, Adina, she's so cute. I saw her picture. Oh, she's so sweet. You guys look like you're so good together. I don't know. Things like that are warm and kind and giving and opening up me to feel comfortable, that I'm not like defensive. So things like that I think is normal for anyone, and if it's not that, then saying, oh, your husband or you guys look so sweet. I don't know, I think just like lighthearted kindness, like I think that's really what
acknowledging what is.
Yeah, just being kind and genuine and like sweet and caring and just nice. And I think through that you will get that response.
100%.
So I guess that's really what I'm saying, because again, sometimes it's not coming from that place. I think people are just ignorant or just
correct. They're not
naive.
They don't,
I don't know.
Right, they're ignorant, they're naive, they don't mean to be hurtful. They have no idea.
I'd like to hope.
Most of the time. Most of the time.
Obviously I don't think anyone's intentionally trying to be.
Correct.
But yeah, so that's what I really feel when I get that. I feel good. I feel happy. And I could then genuinely share, yeah, I know, oh my gosh, Adina's so cute. And I want to talk to you about her, and I love her, and I'm so happy and excited to be with her, whatever. As opposed to the opposite direction.
Right, because people are, we're not going to get to it here today, but that people are happy in their own space now.
Right.
Yes, that they may be yearning for something different. You may be yearning for another child. You may be yearning for a different job, a different house, a different whatever. But to comment and to be positive and be really thoughtful about the space that they're in now is an incredible way to really relate to it and really to give over something beautiful. Yeah. And I always, what I always also say to people, that if you know that there's anyone in your life that's struggling with something, whatever it is, don't forget about them the week later, the month later, 2 months later, 3 months later. Because as we all know, when someone, if God forbid someone dies, Shiva goes on for a week, and during that week, then everyone's around and everyone's visiting, and then after that week, the world disappears.
Right.
But not only does the world disappear, but that person who's gotten the comfort from the community surrounding them also doesn't have the community and also doesn't have their loved one. And that's often when people really start to feel that things are extremely difficult because they don't have that support. And what's so helpful to people is to go back and say, hey, I just want to let you know I'm thinking about you. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It's not a grand gesture. It's
by the way, that's huge.
I'm thinking about you.
That's huge. By the way, that's huge. Sorry. But thank you, because that's such a good one. Yes, even the simplest of things, and I try to do that, not perfect, but I try to do that to some of my girlfriends, like random. I'm talking about like from high school.
Yeah.
I'll just randomly, if they pop into my mind, I'll be like, hey girl, what's up? Oh my gosh, thought about you the other day because I saw whatever, a book that we read. And that you could, okay, I try to share this a lot. You don't know what the heck is going on in someone else's life. Or in their mind or anything. And even the simplest thing, I'm talking about forcing yourself to smile at the
100%.
grocery store could literally change someone's life.
100%.
It's unbelievable,
100%.
Shocking, and such a huge responsibility. But as human beings, we have the ability to literally change someone's
100%.
life.
Shimi Adar talks about this a lot.
Oh,
about
really?
Just walking around with a smile on your face. Just
So hard
to the taxi driver.
Yes.
To the gross out check person.
Yeah.
Check, you know what I'm trying to say. The post office. Wherever you are, just walking around with a smile instead of or
busy or distracted.
Right.
But you know what? I just want to say it's so hard because I don't know how much time we probably should stop yapping.
We'll stop in a
Okay,
minute.
I want to give it an end closure.
Yep.
It's so hard because first of all, we're all in our own zone.
Correct.
We're all in our own space. We're all busy. We're all stressed or whatever. And also, to be completely raw, we're intimidated. I mean, let's be real. It's super hard to just be like, I'm gonna smile at her. She's so pretty. She has such a cute outfit. I need to smile at her. But that's the biggest time that I force myself to do it. And you know what? It is shockingly so received.
Amazing.
Like, I tell you, it's the funniest thing. Because in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, if I'm in pajamas. Guys, yes. I go to the grocery in pajamas when I'm home.
Shocking.
Calm down, I know.
Shocking.
Celebrities, they're just like us.
Yes.
Hello, just kidding. But the point is that I have to feel like I'm just in myself. I'm like doing the best. And not, again, I am not perfect, so I apologize if I didn't smile at you today, but I try. And so I'm just trying to say is that is the most received because they are so surprised that I smiled at them.
Right.
They're like, oh,
Right.
oh, wow,
Amazing.
Thank you. Like, they
Amazing.
smile back and you see it in their expression.
Amazing. It changes.
Interesting, right?
Think about it. When you smile, it changes your whole facial structure.
I know, but I like
immediately.
serious face. Look on my structure.
Right. Serious. It's beautiful.
No, because people like say, why do you ever smile in your pictures? Well, it's fashion face.
Yes, correct. But
I know.
right. So,
Yes.
in closing,
Okay.
I'm just honored that we could have this conversation.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And
Finally.
Correct.
We've been talking about this for years.
We have been talking about this for a long time. And I'm thankful to all of you for watching and for listening. If any of you have any questions or any comments, you can always drop them in the messages to Betty or myself at any time. And I hope that you can take some of these pieces into your regular lives. Tell me about your family instead of asking how many kids someone has or asking if they're married. Thinking about just sending that quick text and saying I'm thinking about you. The smiling, and to being sensitive about sharing, not sharing other people's boundaries, your boundaries, and know that we're very lucky to be living in a time where this is all a choice, and we are having these conversations communally, but you personally in your own lives, you have the choice, and use that choice wisely.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun to sit with y'all, and can't wait for next time.
Okay. Bye, guys.